Many of you know Matteo from our previous meeting. His team, he is our director for thematic areas, and being the clusters also one of our thematic areas, he supervises the design of the clusters. Matteo.
Well, welcome at all. I'm here to introduce the point of the execution and the finalization of the cluster construction. My presentation. Okay, we wait a second. Now I have the role to introduce you in this phase of execution, and we need to present the moment and the phase where we are. Stefano Gatti presents you this slide. This is a picture of the site taken from an helicopter in this last week. So it's a very, very real, fresh image of where we are in this moment. As Stefano said, we have divided the works of the clusters in three different lots that we divide for the tenders. Thank you. The first one is the lot that we have with Bio-Mediterranean cluster, Island, Arizona, cereals and tubers. It's the first, it's the biggest one. The second lot is fruit, legumes and spices and coffee, 3 other clusters. And the last one is the clusters of cocoa and rice. We have quite finished the foundation work, as you see in this Gantt. And now we have finished also the tender and assigned the tender for the building of the construction, the main construction. And in a few days, the 1st of March, we start with the work of the cluster, the building, your own individual pavilion. The model that you have seen outside is the model of we can realize in a few weeks. We start to realize in a few weeks. Then we have 2 very important phases to customize the common area, collaborating with you and with the partners, and to customize and to realize the internal fitting of your single individual space. To do that, as you see in this slide, that starts at the end, or in November, at the end of this year, we need that you are up to give us all the feedback that we need to customize your space. And tomorrow, in the 2 sessions that we have a session where we present the common space design and the content, and a session where we present for each cluster the solution that we, with Fiera Milano, this is our partner in this, want to provide to you to personalize and to fit internal your space. Here are some pictures that can document where we are. This is the cereal and tuber cluster some days ago. So the foundations are quite done, as you can see in this slide. This is the island scene food cluster. Here you can see the igloo, as we call it, where all the pipe pass through. This is the level of the soil. Now we have to put the last element, and we start building over. So now, in the 1st of May, we start with these 4 cluster building, then proceeding from the east to the west, because all the works in the Expo side are proceeding from the east to the west. We are going through the cluster, so the second lot that starts only 2 weeks after the first one are coffee and fruit and spices. And the last one is rice and cocoa. Well, now I want to introduce you in the works that we need to do together, defining the space of the common area and his design. As you know, in the 2012, we have a very special moment, the international workshop for design the concept of each cluster. We have done it with 18 different universities, coming from Tokyo to New York, from Helsinki to South Cape Town, and with 40 professors and 46 tutors and 127 students, we designed 27 different proposals for your clusters. Then we select with you 1 proposal between 3 for each cluster. Grow reflection for the rice, unfolding flavors for the cocoa, the coffee in the florist for the coffee, United Support for Fruits and Legumes, Spice Voyage for World of Spices, the Valley for the cereals and tubers, the White Dream for the Bio-Mediterranean, the Rhythm of Discovery for Island, Sea and Food, and the Sandstorm for the Arid Zone. Here you can see the final design in this very special rendering that tomorrow we can show you in a specific meeting of each one. The reflection of the field of the rice, the unfolding flavor of this box in the forest of the cocoa, the spatial production and travel of the coffee in the world of the coffee cluster, also conceived with Illy partnership, the box of the fruit legumes cluster, the trip between the spices of the spice cluster, the valley where you can touch the crops and having this big hole oven at the end of the cluster, and the big piazza of and square of the Bio-Mediterranean cluster. This is the island that this morning we present to the participants, this sort of special place where we want to host all the island, having the opportunity to introduce the vulnerability and the richness of this very special landscape and environment. And last, the Arid Zone, the opportunity to enter in a very special environment made by 24,000 PVC pipes that want to reproduce a special atmosphere and the effect of a sandstorm. Now, as you know, the common area is made to collect 4 different purposes. As Stefano Gatti said before, we have the opportunity to have a space for events, where we can host events from the country, but events also of the partner and the organizer. And then when we enter with Mr. Galli and Passariello in a day in the life of the cluster, you can understand better how we can use it. A space for exhibit, the common theme of the cluster that join the country there, and a space where we want to let people taste and experiment really the content of the cluster. Taking a cup of coffee in the coffee cluster, tasting rice flavor and rice recipes in the rice cluster, having the experience of the culture of the Bio-Mediterranean in the Bio-Mediterranean cluster. So a very special common place. And to do that, we divide this in tasting, market, events, and exhibition. Now, to put content in this special exhibition, as Filippo Ciantia said before, we had asked the help of 9 very special universities in Italy, the 7 University of Milano and the University of Naples and Venice. And with the help of Fiera Milano, we arrived to design the exhibition project of the common space. But let me introduce last things. It's very little things that I want to introduce today for the first time. Starting from the Illy suggestion to have in the cluster of the coffee a very special photographer that can let us experiment also the story of producing coffee in the country where coffee is produced, we decide to have a very important collaboration with Magnum Photo Agency. The idea is to have a very important photographer for each cluster, not only Sebastian Salgado for the coffee that is provided to us from Hilly, but we have also for each cluster a very important story, a new production edition of photo reportage for each cluster. So we will have Sebastião Salgado that work of the workers of coffee for the coffee with Hilly. We will have Gianni Berengo Gardin for the rice cluster, reproducing the field all over the world and the production of the cluster of the rice. Martin Parr, that is president of Magnum, a very famous photographer, that can introduce us in the world of chocolate and cocoa production and consumption. Irene Kungo, a very special woman that have this vision of things and tree on the cluster, this kind of still life in the cluster of fruit and legumes. Alex Webb, another very famous photographer from Magnum for the spice route. Joel Meyerowitz, one of the biggest photographers in the world, very well known for the photo that he made in the ground zero ground after the disaster, for the cereal and the Greek granary of the world. Ferdinando Scianna, an Italian photographer, maybe the most famous Italian photographer in this moment, coming from Sicily, that want to reproduce the bio-Mediterranean culture and atmosphere, culture, history, and landscape. And Alessandra Sanguinetti, from Argentina. This is another woman that is very special in telling story of Ireland. For the arid zone, George Steinmetz, very famous photographer that works for the National Geographic, that go on the desert with his airplane and take this very special picture from the high. So, 9 photographers, a great photographer for each cluster to tell and convey the story that we want to compose together in the next 2 months. So, I want to close with this slide that help us to come back on the floor and having the timing very, very in mind. So, we need to stress and to close scientific contents and concept design. Then we need now. Today we finish this phase. We have to enter with Fiera Milano, our provider, in the design, detailed design of the common area, and we have to start fitting this area for the end of the year. Thank you very much.